I didn't know that there was someone that you could talk to that specialized in concussions, and this woman did, and it was amazing because she understood what I was going through.
Welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. This is a show presented by Heart and Solutions Counseling Agency. We release new episodes every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central and encourage you to batch up that laundry, put away the dishes, plan for the week ahead, or do any other task that might seem daunting while you give our show a listen. You might just be encouraged to call your therapist, connect with this week's guest, or seek out those services you've been considering for a while but haven't made the commitment to yet. If you are in the state of Iowa and are in need of mental or behavioral health counseling, give us a call at 1-800-531-4236. Enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Dr. Julie Johnson. I'm the president and founder here at Heart and Solutions Mental Health Counseling in Iowa in the United States.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt. I am the Vice President in charge of our Behavioral Health Department at Heart and Solutions. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
Our guest today is a writer, she's a published author, and she is a self-publishing coach. Helping other people to go through that self-publishing process and tell their stories. And so she's here today to tell us her story about counseling, going through several traumatic situations all at one time, and going through counseling and utilizing the experiences and the things that she learned in that process to help other people go through this process as well. So she is the author of the Gratitude and Fun Mental Wellness Workbook with the Journal. So welcome today to Teresa Carnegie.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, how are you guys?
Good, thanks for being here. So tell us a little bit of background on you. So I know that you went through a very traumatic or several very traumatic situations kind of all at one time. Can you tell us about that?
I mean, it didn't all happen in a day, but it was 18 months, and it started with the death of my father from cancer. And then a week later, I was sitting at a red light and I was rear-ended by a 90-year-old person who didn't hit their brakes. So they hit me twice because they rebounded, and because they drove right into me without touching their brakes, rebounded, and it hit again. And then a few months, I had really bad concussions, so it took me a while to get back to work. And I got back to work, and there was a lot of harassment by coworkers who didn't understand that I wasn't 100%. Concussions, when you've had a lot of concussions, they don't go away overnight. And mine weren't. That one took, I think, a couple years for it to go away. And it was about 10 months later, I driving down the road and somebody drove in front of me, and another accident, and 2 months later another car accident. And in between that first and second car accident, there were random things, like I woke up one morning and I had sprained my ankle in 3 places. Or sorry, I had sprained my ankle, and then one day I had one of my massive headaches from the concussion, because the driving and then the working and then the driving, it doesn't help. And so I had a huge migraine, and I opened up the fridge door, and obviously my reflexes were a little slower due to the pain. And a 500 milliliter bottle of water fell out of the fridge, and the way it landed on my foot broke my foot in 3 spots. So it was, I can't remember, one of those was 3 spots. Anyway, that was within 10 months. And then the third car accident, I think it was a month and a half after that, a friend died of cancer that we'd been friends with since we were like small kids. And then it was only a couple of weeks after that, I learned there's a thing called scabies because I got it. And that was that was a revolting thing that I wasn't okay with. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse at the job. And yeah, I ended up walking out of a 12 and a half year old job, like a job I'd been at for over 12 years. And a couple weeks later, my naturopath, I mean, he had sent me a message saying, I have to cancel tomorrow's appointment. Let's reschedule. I'm not feeling well. And a few weeks later, he had passed from, he also cancer. So that was three. And then 2 months after that, I went to make a doctor's appointment because I'd almost got hit by somebody again. So I was like, losing it because by the third car accident, I was getting panic attacks and had a hard time leaving the house and stuff like that because I thought everybody was trying to kill me. And yeah, so I went to make a doctor's appointment and the phone had been disconnected because she closed her practice because she had cancer. So it was just a very, like, even the people out there to help me, I felt like they were gone. So it was a difficult time.
Yeah, sounds like it. That is crazy. That all happened in like an 18-month time span too. Like a lot of people don't even have all that in their lifetime. Um, and I see that. Okay, so you had your first major concussion after your dad died, and that kind of led to you finding a counselor. I've never heard of someone like counseling helping with concussions. Can you kind of talk about that experience?
I hadn't either. So because it was car accidents and I'm here in British Columbia, Canada, it's the way our insurance works for the car accidents. I had to do what the doctor said. And the doctor was, you know what, this is taking you a long time to get over this concussion. I'm worried that it's grief related because I had the grief. I was in grief and I got the concussion. So she was worried they were somehow tied together. And yeah, I don't even know. I mean, I probably used my good friend Google and tried to find a local counselor. And I didn't know that there was someone that you could talk to that specialized in concussions. And this woman did. And it was amazing because she understood what I was going through. And I mean, I was very lucky. My doctor at the time, she had had concussions in her lifetime too. So she was very understanding. And one thing that's hard when you have a concussion is getting people to believe you have a concussion and understanding the impact the concussion plays on your life. And so thankfully I had a doctor that did. And then I found a counselor who did. So it was a very supportive experience for me during that time. And she was really good in helping me acknowledge that I was struggling and not push myself, give me little things to do, break things down, slow things down, little things like get in a car before I got in the car, or when I got in the car to drive, do a 5-minute meditation. When I got to my destination before I went into the office, do a 5-minute meditation. Just things to calm the brain, help the brain out. And she gave me all these neat little things, and then also resources like, oh, there's this company that can help you with this, there's this here's some information for this. It was super supportive and helpful at a time when if you've had a concussion, you understand it's really hard to get your thoughts together. It's really hard to forward think. It's really hard to be, just because surviving for the day, dealing with all the pain. I was lucky. I had migraines. I didn't just have headaches. Mine were the concussion that gave me migraines. So it was constant all the time, day and night, the pain, right? So it was really, really helpful having somebody that knew what I was going through, knew how to get me going forward, and also was there to listen when I was struggling. Having somebody hear you and acknowledge they're hearing you. And it wasn't, you don't even necessarily need, oh, poor you. You don't need the sympathy all the time. You just need to know somebody's listening to you. that is a huge piece that I mean, I had never done therapy before, and that probably stuck out the most. It was like having a somebody right beside you supporting you during a struggle, which how many times do you want somebody to support you and you always feel like you never have the support you need out of your friends, your family, you know, we all do it. And it made me realize that's not who I need the support from. I just, a professional is there to give me that support. And it was a really good first experience, I have to admit. Yeah.
When we're grieving, especially the loss of a family member who was part of that support system, then oftentimes what that means is that our normal kind of support network that we would go to is also impacted, is also grieving the same loss that we are grieving. And so it can be so challenging because it can feel like, okay, I can't, bring this to the people I would normally bring my situations to because they're also going through that. We saw that a lot with COVID situations in 2020, right? Where we went, who do I talk to about this? Because everybody is going through it. And so when we've lost that very significant support person in our lives, especially a family member, that does mean that so many of our other family members and friends and lifelong supports are also being impacted in that same way. So having that counselor that is not affected by us is such it sounds, opposite. It sounds like, well, when somebody's supporting me, I want them to be empathetic in terms of like, I want them to kind of feel how I'm feeling. A counselor is going to be empathetic, but they're not affected. So especially for people like you who seem very connected with other people, that connection with other people is so important. It can be difficult for us to go to other people and ask for that support because we're constantly aware of how the other person is feeling when we're telling this story or when we're expressing our feelings, right? So I just love the perspective that you're giving on your counseling experience because you're like, yeah, that person, I don't have to worry about how they're feeling. I don't have to worry about what they're thinking about, my situation, or if I'm going to upset them with the story that I'm telling or the memory that I'm sharing. So I just think it's such a great perspective that you're sharing. And I was also so interested in what you said about concussions and about how your work support system really, I mean, you were there for, you said over 12 years, right? And so there must have been a support system there at one point, and then it changed, it sounds like, or you noticed the things that were happening at that time. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those situations where I knew it was not, perfect. I mean, is anything perfect, right? But I thought I had friends. I thought I had people who cared. Um, and when you change pieces, or whether it's you or the situation, when things change, you really learn who is your friend, who is, empathetic towards you, who is. I mean, I couldn't believe some of the things that they didn't attack me necessarily, but it was all passive aggressive and it was all behind the scenes and there was a lot of talk behind. And a simple thing like I couldn't go out and lift things. Like if a customer wanted me to go out and check something in the warehouse, I couldn't do that. And they made the biggest stink about that. And I'm like, yeah, healing here. I don't understand why you can't understand that, like it was they could not I learned that while they would say lots of nice words previously, when you put them into a situation where they had to prove that that was how they thought. That's not how they thought. They lacked the empathy, they lacked the understanding, they lacked the compassion. It was all, why aren't you back to where you used to be? Why aren't you doing what you used to do? Or, you're getting special treatment. No, I had to go for appointments and I lost pay. Like, I don't know where the special treatment for that was. Just it was amazing. I mean, I came back after having scabies and they asked me not to use the bathroom because they didn't want to catch scabies. And I was like, I didn't come back to work contagious. Like, I stayed away when I was contagious. I thought I was being considerate. And then, I get it, fear, but there was no discussion. Are you still contagious? There was no discussion. It was just, let's get you. It's how it felt. And after, three car accidents where people, they weren't my fault. And these little things where I wasn't getting the support or the friendship I thought I had. It really added to that feeling that people were out to hurt me or kill me. I say kill, and it sounds extreme, but your brain doesn't know the difference between what's normal and what's extreme. It just reacts. And your brain is naturally, I mean, I don't think I need to tell you guys this, but your brain is naturally created to protect us and keep us safe. So it's going to jump to somebody, everyone's going to kill you. You have to be careful. Everybody's going to kill you. Yeah, that's a new experience. I never had panic attacks before, and I didn't even know what they were until I had one. So actually, I just still didn't even know what it was. I just happened to have one in my doctor's office, and because they're proud of people. Sorry, off topic. I just went all over there.
Can you
There's
kind
no
of,
track in this.
yeah.
You can never get off track on this show because there is no track.
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned panic attacks too. I mean, I've personally never had one. Can you kind of explain like what that felt like for your first time having one?
Is a horrid feel. I hate panic attacks. I cannot tell you how horrible they are. They are, and they're exhausting. It's because your body goes to the extreme of fight or flight. And you afterwards, like, it'll take me days to just get my body back to functioning properly, just to feeling, not even to feeling calm, just to get over like the exhaustion of being in that extreme place. But the first panic attack happened, I was driving, which is makes sense, car accidents. And I think before I was able to drive after the car accidents, I would go to my doctor's appointments or other appointments. So I was going to people for help. And I remember one day, I think it was the first time I went to see my no, I'm not sure what the difference was. I did find I would have them if I was doing something new after, I called it like after the concussion. Whenever I had to do something new, it was like I had to retrain my brain again and let it know this is okay. You've done this before, you're not going to die today, kind of thing. But I was getting on the highway and I just started, everything was fine. Everything's normal. And then all of a sudden, I realized I was breathing faster. And then I was like almost panting. I was breathing so fast. And then your heart starts beating, extra fast. And then the tears started just flying out of my eyes. I wasn't crying and none of this is conscious. That is the hardest part. It just hits you. You did not think of anything. There was nothing different from 1 minute to the next. I didn't think I'm going to die. I didn't think, oh my gosh, this is unsafe. I didn't think of a scenario where I was unsafe. I didn't think of anything. I was just driving down the road, doing one of my favorite things, which is driving down the road, listening to music. I absolutely love driving. It's the only reason I keep doing it after all these car accidents. But I was just window open, I think, even, and I was really enjoying the drive. And all of a sudden, breathing fast, heartbeat fast, tears slipping down the eyes, and I couldn't catch my breath because the breathing and the heart. It meant, and I don't even know what made me do it, but I switched radio stations to one that has meditation, and there was a chanting on there. And because I didn't know what a panic attack was, I had never had one before. I did not say, "Oh, this could be a panic attack," but I just switched the radio stations, and there was a chant, and that chanting brought me out, and it calmed me down. And yeah, I think I had a couple of those, and then I was in the doctor's office, and it started filling up with people. One day I was in the doctor's office, it started filling up with people, and I didn't notice that feeling coming up right away, because again, still new. I'd only had a few of them before, and then I got put into the room with the doctor, and the breathing was there, the heartbeat was there, and the tears sliding down my face were there. And I put my headphones in, and thankfully, I had been to the concussion clinic, and they had mentioned, I think it was there, or a cousin of mine had mentioned the Calm app. And at the time, I found a meditation that just said, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And it was that was all it was. And I put that in, and then focusing on that those words um, helped. And my doctor came in at the time, and she's like, "What's going on?" And then she just looked at me. She goes, "What's going on?" "Oh, you're having a panic attack." And I was like, "Huh, what are panic attacks?" Like, and this was, I think, maybe my third or fourth by this point. So, maybe even more. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it is a horrid experience. Probably the worst one I ever had, because if I can't stop it, then I start feeling like I'm going to die in the situation I'm in. I am there. Death is imminent. I am in a dangerous situation. The worst I think ever happened was because of it's worse because it's of its complete and utter randomness. But I was so one of the things that happened after the car accidents was I became afraid of the dark. And which is ironic, because even as a child, I was never afraid of the dark. So it got to the point where I couldn't leave my house if it was dark. If I was out when it was dark, I would be like, I couldn't even sleep properly. I had a hard time going to sleep until the morning because it was dark. Um, Darkness became a huge factor in my life over the years because of those accidents. But one day, it was actually, so those three car accidents I had in that 18 months, all that trauma I think it started like 10 years ago. And in 2021, I had two more accidents within 3 months. So I had just started getting better, found all kinds of alternative things to help me get better, and then it hit me again. So I was again working on getting better. And last fall, it was dark. I had again got over the darkness thing and doing really well, but it was dark, and I was sitting in one of those little strip malls in front of a shop, um, and just waiting for someone. And somebody walked in front of my car to go into the shop, and it was just a person, and they were just like an average person, a guy wearing a jacket and jeans, and um, I think it zip up. I don't know. My brain, I saw him in front of my car and walk into the building. My brain had a whole different picture, and I saw a person with a hoodie and a hood over top of their head point a gun, face me, and point a gun at me. And I just, like, it was immediate. And it was, how do you come out of that situation when you aren't in the situation? It was my brain playing a trick on me. I used every technique I've learned over the years to um, get myself calm out of that. In the end, I just had to drive right home because I was so worked up. I was having a really hard time coming out of that panic attack. That was probably the worst. But panic attacks suck, and I don't recommend them to anybody.
That's such a funny thing to say because because of what you talked about before, where I love that you said tears were coming out of my eyes. I was not crying. That is exactly what it is. It is involuntary, the way that a sneeze is involuntary, the way that a yawn is involuntary, the way that breathing is involuntary when we're asleep. We are not creating it, and so we cannot control it. And so we cannot stop crying because we're not crying. Our body is doing these things. We can't stop breathing quickly because we're not breathing quick, right? Like I can right now in this moment, I can say I'm going to breathe quickly and then I can do it. That's a voluntary response. When we're in a panic attack, I'm not breathing quickly. My body is having this response and I can't stop it because I'm not doing it.
Yes.
And so when you said I don't recommend it, I just thought it was so funny because these are not only the panic attacks, but also your concussions and your grief symptomology. Like you have experienced in that short period of time, you experienced so many different uh, challenges that are invisible challenges. If you had gone to work with a broken leg and said, I can't move boxes, like I can't, because I can't walk without crutches, so I can't move these boxes over here, people would be like, oh, totally. Like, yeah, I'm gonna move these boxes for you, right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be like, you're just not trying hard enough to move these boxes, right? Or you're just not, you just want special treatment where you don't have to move boxes just because your leg is broken. Like people, we have that kind of, I think society has that different response when it's something we can see, when it's something physical that we can see. And there's this tendency to think that things that we can't see can be controlled, that okay, well, just think differently about it, right? Or just try harder to do it. And it's like, if my leg is broken, like trying harder to move boxes is not going to help me move boxes. It's just going to stop me from healing my leg, right? So,
Yeah.
and because, grief is such a invisible wound, people cannot see that wound, cannot see that healing taking place, cannot see the disruptions to healing that are happening inside us. And so and a concussion is the same way, or a traumatic brain injury, really, of any kind. My biological mother has a traumatic brain injury, and we have a language barrier as well. So she speaks Korean and I don't, and she has a traumatic brain injury. So communication is very challenging
Yeah.
because of this, right? And I had to learn a lot about, okay, what is cultural, what is language barrier, what is her traumatic brain injury, right? So being able to do that was a difficult process, and it's not always a process that people understand that they need to do in order to understand where somebody else is coming from. So and the other thing about the panic attacks too is that, yeah, that because breathing heavily or quickly is something that, yeah, at any moment I can decide to do that, then, or I can, then other people can see that and go, oh, well, I can decide to do that, so you must be deciding to do that. Whereas that is not the case at all. We can't think our way out of it. We can't reason our way out of a panic attack. If we could, we would do that because it's not comfortable for us either. And so I think when people experience somebody having a panic attack, they go, oh, this is uncomfortable for me, right? Like it's uncomfortable for me watching this happen. So I want you to stop doing that so that
Yeah.
I'm not uncomfortable. And what I think gets overlooked is that, like, no, I'm not comfortable either. Like if I could stop doing that, I would stop doing it because I don't enjoy it. And so these invisible wounds, right, where people cannot see that from the outside, they get so overlooked and they get so challenged by people who just don't understand.
I
And
can't tell
so
you how many times I got told, just be positive. Just think
mm,
positive. Don't think about bad things. I'm like,
mm,
if I had a choice over these panic attacks, I would not be choosing them. Like,
absolutely, like 0 out of 10 would not recommend having them, right? And so if you had a choice, like yeah, you wouldn't choose to have them, and we don't have a choice over it. Our body, like you said, protects us, and it doesn't understand what is an immediate threat and what is not an immediate threat. And that feeling when we're having a panic attack, that feeling is like, if you've never had a panic attack and you think about it, picture like being tied to the train tracks and a train coming at you, right? Like that is how it feels, that death is upon me and I'm going to die because I can't even breathe. And this train's coming at me, right? And I can see it, but I'm tied to the train tracks. I can't do anything about it. And it's a horrible experience. So I love that you talk about it, because so many people, if you haven't experienced one, it looks a lot different than it feels. I guess is what I would say.
it definitely does. I had people angry at me because I was trying to get out of a situation. And, like a simple thing like I couldn't sit in as a passenger in a car. Um, car accidents totally makes sense. I'm scared of other people, right? And somebody's now in control of my safety. And so I was just like losing it and I had to get out. And you're being so difficult. Just calm down. And it all became my fault for, like you said, making them uncomfortable. And it's like, I'm not doing anything to you. Could we just give me a minute? I'm in a horrid situation right now, not by choice. Because, like you said, your brain immediately goes to you're going to die. And it, there's nothing you can do to stop that in a rational way. You can't think your way out of it. You can't calm down. You can't just think positive thoughts. None of that will work. I tried. I learned it doesn't work. But yeah, it is really hard because other people can make it worse because they can't see it and they don't understand. And they don't recognize that they are making the entire thing worse. Um, but that is the thing. It's like you great words you said. It's people can't see it, they don't believe it, and then yeah, the lack of empathy is outstanding, and you're just being difficult for them. You're doing things to them. You're ruining their life in some way that day or however, right? And yeah, no, it's not you, it's me. Thanks. Let's bring this back to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, my one thing that I'm super proud, so I have an 8-year-old, and I'm proud of this with her, because this was something that I'd gone to a training when she was like maybe 2, and they talked about the they talked about, okay, when your child does something that is an inconvenience to you or that scares you, right? Like they're walking on the ledge of the thing, or they fall down and the chair falls on them or something, and they scare you, right? Um, the temptation is to like yell at them or correct them or say like, don't, I told you to stop tipping in that chair, right? Now you've fallen and the chair fell on you. And so what they talked about was, now what is more important though, the fear that you're having over that chair might break or that your child fell and hurt their body. And that always stayed with me because I went, oh, I don't care about the chair, right? I do care about her, but my fear was coming out in terms of like being upset with her for making me afraid, basically, right? When that would happen. And so the other day, I don't know what she was doing, but she was doing something. She's very active. She was doing something and she fell down, and I heard just a giant bang in the living room. And I went in there to investigate. And the first thing she said to me was, I'm okay. And then she said, I'm going to clean it up, whatever it was that she spilled or dropped or whatever. And, but the first thing she says when something like that happens is, I'm okay. And I'm always proud of that. And I love kind of sharing that example just because that is the most important thing. The most important thing in that moment is that she fell or that I thought she might have fallen, right? When I hear this loud noise. And the fact that she knows that that's the first thing I'm going to ask her, even if I'm angry that she was into something she wasn't supposed to be, right? And so I think in that example, where, okay, I want you to get in the front seat of my car so that I can drive us to this thing and we're not going to be late to this appointment or whatever. And it's going to throw off my day if I don't. Well, that stuff isn't as important as, are you okay? And are you okay should always be our first question when something like that happens.
That would be nice. I think it's easier for adults to do it with kids than it is for adults to do with other adults. Because for some reason we're like, oh, that's an adult, so they're fine, kind of thing, right?
And we're not fine. None of us are. And then, and I mean, really, we're not. And we talk about like in terms of children, when we're saying like, oh, we no, like it's the punishments that we do for children are sometimes, like go to your room until you can calm down or whatever. And no, we don't want to be doing that. We want to be like, sit with me until, right? Like, let's breathe at the same time, or like just sit next to me while we breathe or while we look at this or whatever. And like that's the response that we want. And so it's hard enough to do it with children, but I think exactly right. Like when we do it with adults, it causes us challenges and it causes other people challenges. But I think so many of us were brought up where that was the response that we were given as children. And so then that's the response that we give others because we're like, that's just what you do when somebody inconveniences you, scares you, right? Doesn't listen to you.
That you make a very good point. Most of us did not grow up being taught these, like you said, you've done it, so your daughter immediately says, I'm okay. I can't remember ever doing that as a child. That was not something, because that was not something my mom would have got mad at me because she didn't, like you've worded it different now for your child, right? Whereas every generation, I think, learns a little more and does a little different, and things get a little better, right? So it's good. And you can feel sad. Why didn't that happen to me? Kind of, why did my mom do that for me? But your parents didn't have the knowledge we have now, right? And it's kind of like we're here talking about counseling. Well, other people don't have the knowledge that I have, from my personal experiences, right? So we keep sharing, and people don't, they understand there's now different perspectives, or they don't feel alone. And that's how we learn, and we can do things for our kids that are, wasn't done for us, right? I think that's awesome too that you've done that. Nice. Thank you for sharing, because that is great.
Yeah, and I feel like we ran out of time. But,
Okay.
we would love to have you come back. I feel like we didn't really even get into like your writing and your coaching and your book at all. You just had such a good story. But can you give us a suggestion to somebody that you would give if they are on the fence about starting counseling? What suggestion might you give?
Start small. Um, Phone, I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but hearing in where I live, we're allowed to just phone and talk to a counselor and see if we're a good fit. You can just have a conversation, see if that is somebody that you vibe with, that, do they listen to you the way you want them to listen to you? Or do they give the advice you want them to give, kind of thing, right? Just start small and just make a phone call, or listen to, if they've got a podcast, listen to a podcast and see if that is somebody that you would like to get help from. You don't necessarily have to go and make these grand gestures of finding the perfect person. And, I've seen a couple people, depending on where I was. So you don't have to either, pick somebody and stick with them for life, right? So it's really good. Just try somebody. Just know that it's not forever and you can change.
Absolutely. That is awesome. Great suggestion. And we want to talk about, no, yeah, we would love to have you come back, but we do want to let people know about your workbook and the journal that you have available on Amazon. So it's called the Gratitude and Fun Mental Wellness Workbook and Journal. And it is available on Amazon. People can buy it directly from there. And it sounds like it is a hands-on type of experience book to kind of help people work through some of the things that you have worked through and that you have learned along the way. So definitely want to check that out. We want to have you back to talk more about that.
I am Teresa Carnegie and I need a counselor.
Awesome.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
So do you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the You Need a Counselor podcast. We are so grateful that you're here. Now, we want to hear from you. Text us or give us a call at 515-650-3231. You can also find and connect with You Need a Counselor on Facebook and Instagram. If you've enjoyed today's show, please take a moment to like, review, or leave a comment, as all of these things help others to find and benefit from the podcast as well. If you're in the state of Iowa and interested in mental health counseling or behavioral health intervention services, give us a call at 800-531-4236.